This revenge story contains intense acts of retribution that may be excessive and could be disturbing to some viewers.
The hum of the hospital night shift was a constant drone, a white noise I'd grown used to. I sat in the dim break room, fluorescent lights flickering above, casting a pale glow over the worn table. My dry turkey sandwich on stale wheat lay half-eaten before me, the kind of meal that reminded me why I hated night shifts. It was always an afterthought, something to keep the body going when the mind was already somewhere else. I pulled out my phone, more out of habit than anything. The screen lit up, and I scrolled through the usual emails, pharmacy updates, scheduling reminders, and the inevitable spam. One subject line caught my eye. "You won't believe what I found. Check this out." It was from Mark, an old friend who worked at an ad agency. We hadn't talked in months, not since he'd moved to the city for the new job. Curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked the link, expecting some dumb meme or viral video, something to kill the monotony. The URL led to a live streaming site I'd never heard of. The page loaded slowly, the video buffering. When it finally came into focus, I froze. A couple was on screen, their faces partly hidden by masks, performing intimate acts for an audience. The chat box beside the video was a blur of comments, viewers egging them on, tipping money for increasingly explicit requests. My stomach churned, but I couldn't look away. There was something about the woman, her mouth, her eyes. They were familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. I leaned closer, my sandwich forgotten. The woman laughed at something the man whispered, her voice muffled but unmistakable. My heart dropped. It was her. It was her, my wife, Jessie, the woman I'd shared a bed with for 7 years, the woman who kissed me goodbye that morning with a smile. Here she was on screen, performing for strangers. The man with her, his face also masked, guiding her, his hands possessive, his voice low and commanding. I didn't recognize him, but that didn't matter. What mattered was her, the betrayal. Anger surged, making my hands shake. I wanted to throw my phone, smash it. Instead, I kept watching, eyes glued to the screen. The comments kept coming, the tips piling up. "Do it again," someone wrote. "More," another demanded. Jessie obliged, her movements practiced, her laughter forced. She was playing a role, but it was a role she'd chosen. A role she'd hidden from me. I closed the tab, my breath coming in short bursts. The break room felt suddenly claustrophobic. I stood, pacing the small space, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? How could she do this to me? To us? I thought of our life together, the quiet dinners, the lazy Sundays, the plans we'd made for the future. Had it all been a lie? I needed answers. I opened the browser again, my fingers trembling as I typed the site's name. I created an account using a fake name and email and searched for Jessie's profile. It didn't take long. Her username was innocuous, something that wouldn't raise suspicion. But there it was, a catalog of past streams, each one more explicit. I clicked the most recent one, my stomach churning as I watched her again, this time in a hotel room, the setting different, but the act the same. The videos were time-stamped, some from weeks ago, others from months. I scrolled through them, my anger hardening into something colder. This wasn't just a one-time thing. This was a pattern, a secret life she'd been living. I felt sick, but I forced myself to keep watching, to gather every detail. I needed to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. By the end of my break, I had a plan. I would confront her, but not yet. First, I needed evidence. I needed to see it for myself, to catch her in the act. I returned to my shift, mind racing, hands steady despite the storm inside. The hospital's hum faded, replaced by a single thought: I would make her pay. The next few days passed in a blur. I moved through my shifts like a ghost, my body on autopilot while my mind churned with questions. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her Jessie on that screen, smiling at a stranger, her body moving in ways meant for me. The images burned into my brain, relentless. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. All I could do was dig deeper. I started with her phone. She always left it unlocked, trusting. I waited until she was in the shower, the sound of water masking my movements. My hands trembled as I scrolled through her messages, her emails, her browsing history. Nothing. She was careful, deleting everything. But I wasn't stupid. I knew there were ways to hide things, ways to cover your tracks. I just had to be smarter. I downloaded a data recovery app. It took hours, but I found what I was looking for. Deleted messages, photos, videos. My stomach turned. Text between her and a man named Jason, Mark's coworker, the one I hadn't recognized from the stream. Their conversations started casual, friendly banter about work and mutual friends. Then they turned explicit, plans to meet up, to film, to perform. My hands clenched around the phone, knuckles white. I took screenshots, saving everything to a hidden folder. I needed proof, something I could use when the time came. But it wasn't enough. I needed to see it myself. I started tracking her movements, noting when she left, where she went. She was careful, never gone long, always with an excuse. But I knew better. I knew where she was going. One night, I followed her. She thought I was working a double shift, but I'd called in sick. I waited in my car, a block away, watching as she left. She was dressed casually, but there was something different, a confidence, a spark. She drove off, unaware I was tailing her. She stopped at a hotel on the edge of town, a cheap, no-name place. I parked nearby, heart pounding as I watched her walk inside. I waited a few minutes before following. Hood pulled low. The lobby was empty, the clerk too engrossed in his phone to notice me. I took the stairs, my footsteps silent. I found her room on the third floor, the door slightly ajar. My breath caught as I peered inside. There she was, in front of a camera, in place, her body on display. Jason was there too, hands on her, guiding her. It made me sick. I pulled out my phone and started recording, hands steady despite the rage. The video was short, but it was enough. I had what I needed. I slipped away, mind racing with plans. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. I returned home, the house dark and silent. Jessie's side of the bed was empty, the sheets cold. I sat in the living room, the glow of my phone illuminating my face as I reviewed the footage. They thought they could get away with it. They thought I wouldn't find out. But I had. And now, they were going to regret it. The house was oppressively quiet. I sat at the kitchen table, the laptop screen casting long shadows. The hotel footage played on a loop, Jessie's laughter echoing. Each time the anger grew. But anger wasn't enough. I needed a plan, something precise, something final. I started researching. The streaming site, Jason, how they operated. The site was one of many, a platform for amateur performers to monetize content. Anonymous, untraceable, perfect for people like Jessie and Jason. but nothing was truly untraceable. I just had to dig deeper. I created a fake account, posing as a potential viewer. I messaged Jason directly, typing fast. "Hey, big fan," I wrote, forcing myself to sound casual. "Any chance for a private session? I'm willing to pay top dollar." He responded quickly. "Depends on what you're looking for," he wrote, tone cocky. I clenched my jaw. I wanted to strangle him, but I played the part. We negotiated a price, time, location. His next stream was in 4 days, at our house. Our house. The audacity made my blood boil, but it gave me an idea. If they were going to use my home as their stage, I'd turn it into their prison. I started gathering supplies. A hidden camera, small enough to be undetectable. Sleeping pills from a colleague at the hospital. I told her I was having trouble sleeping, voice calm. She didn't ask. I was a trusted co-worker, no one would suspect. The night before the stream, I set up the camera in our bedroom, hiding it on the bookshelf, lens trained on the bed. I tested it. The angle was perfect, the resolution clear. They wouldn't know they were being watched until it was too late. Next, the sleeping pills. I crushed them into a powder, hands steady. I coated the bottom of our coffee mugs, careful not to leave traces. Jessie always used my mug when I wasn't home. Now, it was her downfall. I rehearsed the plan in my head. I'd leave for work as usual, but wait nearby. When the stream started, I'd return, slipping into the house unnoticed. I'd watch through the camera as they drank the coffee, as the pills took effect. And then, when they were unconscious, I'd make my move. The morning of the stream, I acted normal. I kissed Jessie goodbye, lips brushing hers briefly. She smiled, eyes bright, oblivious. "Have a good shift," she said. I forced a smile. "You too," I replied, voice even. I left, heart pounding. But instead of driving to the hospital, I parked blocks away, waiting. The hours dragged. I watched the clock, counting down to the stream. Finally, it was time. I returned to the house, footsteps silent. I disabled the loosened chain lock, slipping inside without a sound. The house was quiet, the only sound the refrigerator. I pulled out my phone, opening the camera feed. There they were, sitting on the bed, laughing, flirting. Jessie wore lingerie, mask in place. Jason was shirtless, hands already roaming. My stomach turned. I forced myself to watch. They reached for the coffee mugs, taking long sips. I held my breath, waiting. It didn't take long. Within minutes, their movements slowed, laughter fading. Jessie's head drooped. Jason tried to stand, but his legs gave out. I waited a few minutes, ensuring they were fully unconscious. Then, I moved. I entered the bedroom, heart pounding, hands steady. I bound their wrists and ankles with soft towels, securing them with zip ties. They didn't stir, breathing slow and even. I stood over them, shadow falling across their prone forms. The plan was in motion. Now, I just had to wait. The bedroom was eerily silent, the only sound their soft breathing. Jessie and Jason lay limp on the bed, faces peaceful. I stood over them, the weight of what I was about to do pressing down. But there was no turning back. The plan was in motion. I double-checked the zip ties, secure but not too tight. I didn't want to leave marks not yet. The towels were soft, unlikely to cause discomfort. I wanted them awake and aware when the real punishment began. I glanced at the clock. They'd been out for about 20 minutes. The sleeping pills would keep them under for another hour, maybe more. That gave me time to prepare. I moved through the house, gathering supplies. A lighter, a bottle of clear liquid labeled with a skull and crossbones, and a small digital recorder. I set everything on the dresser, arranging it neatly. Next, I cleaned the evidence. I washed the mugs, scrubbing away the powder. I wiped the counters, the sink, the coffee maker. I emptied the trash, taking the bag outside. When I returned, the kitchen was spotless. Back in the bedroom, I checked the camera feed. The angle was perfect, capturing everything. I started recording. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about proof. I sat in the chair by the window, watching them, waiting. The minutes ticked by. My mind raced, replaying everything I'd seen, everything I'd learned. The texts, the videos, the laughter. The anger burned, but I stayed calm. I needed control. Finally, Jessie stirred. Her head rolled, a soft groan escaping. Her eyes fluttered open, trying to focus. She looked around, confused. Then she saw me. What's going on?" she slurred, voice thick with sleep. She tried to sit up. Her eyes widened as she realized she couldn't move. "What is this? Why am I?" I didn't answer. I let the silence sink in. She struggled, breath coming faster, panic setting in. "Let me go," she demanded. Jason woke up next, movements sluggish, face pale. He looked around, landing on me, then on Jessie. "What the hell?" he muttered. He tugged at the zip ties, confusion turning to anger. "What is this? Untie me, you psycho." I stood, stepping closer. My shadow fell over them, and they froze. I picked up the bottle, holding it up so they could see the label. "Do you know what this is?" I asked, voice calm. Jessie's eyes darted to the bottle, face paling. Is that acid?" she whispered, voice trembling. I didn't answer. Instead, I unscrewed the cap, the sound loud. I poured a small amount into the lid. "This," I said, holding up the lid, "is something you don't want near your eyes. 1 drop, and you'll be blind." Jason's face went white. "You're insane," he spat. But fear was in his voice. "You're not going to do this." I smiled, cold and humorless. "You don't know what kind of person I am," I said. "You thought you could betray me, humiliate me, and I'd just let it go. But you were wrong." Jessie started to cry. "Please," she begged, voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Just let us go. We'll never do it again, I promise." I ignored her, turning to Jason. "And you," I said, voice low, dangerous. "You thought you could take what was mine. You thought you could get away with it." He glared, but there was no defiance, just fear. "It was just business," he said, voice shaking. "It didn't mean anything." I laughed, a harsh sound. "Business? You think that makes it okay?" I stepped closer, the lid of the bottle in my hand. They both flinched. "Please," Jessie sobbed. "Don't do this. I'll do anything. Just don't hurt us." I hesitated, letting the moment stretch. Then, slowly, I lowered the lid. "You're going to apologize," I said, voice cold. "You're going to beg for forgiveness. And then, maybe, I'll let you go." They both started talking at once, pleading, apologizing, promising. I let them grovel. I recorded every word, every tear, every promise. When I stepped back, the bottle in my hand, they sagged in relief. "You can wash your eyes out," I said, nodding toward the bathroom. "But remember this. Remember what you've done. And know that if you ever cross me again, There won't be any warnings. They scrambled to the bathroom, movements awkward, hands still bound. I watched them go, the satisfaction of revenge settling in my chest. But even as I packed up the camera and supplies, I knew this wasn't over, not yet. The bathroom door slammed shut, the sound echoing through the house. I stood in the bedroom, the bottle in hand, heart pounding. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind a cold, hollow feeling. But I couldn't stop. I had to see this through. I set the bottle down and picked up the digital recorder, stopping the playback. Their voices pleading, desperate still echoed in my mind. I slipped the recorder into my pocket, a powerful piece of evidence. It wasn't just for me anymore. It was for everyone who needed to know the truth. I moved to the bathroom door, listening. The faucet was running, water splashing. I could hear Jesse sobbing and Jason cursing. They were scared, confused at my mercy. The thought sent a shiver, but I pushed it aside. This wasn't about mercy. This was about justice. I opened the door slowly. They both froze. Jesse sat on the edge of the tub, face red and blotchy. Jason stood by the sink, hands gripping the edge of the counter. The zip ties were still in place, the towels damp. "Get out," I said, voice firm. "We're not done yet." They hesitated. I stepped aside, gesturing toward the bedroom. Now. They moved slowly, Jesse stumbling. I stepped between them. "Don't touch her," I said, voice dangerous. "You've done enough." He glared, but there was no defiance. He backed away, hands up. "Fine," he muttered. "Whatever you say." I herded them back into the bedroom, directing them to sit on the bed. They obeyed, heads bowed. I stood before them, arms crossed, expression unreadable. The room was silent, except for their breathing. "You think this is over?" I asked, breaking the silence. "You think a few tears and apologies are enough?" Jessie looked up, eyes pleading. "What do you want from us?" she asked, voice trembling. "We said we're sorry. What else can we do?" I smiled, cold. "You can start by telling me the truth," I said. "All of it. No more lies, no more excuses. I want to know everything." They exchanged a glance. Jason spoke first. "It was just a job," he said, voice defensive. "We weren't hurting anyone. It was just entertainment." "Entertainment?" I repeated, voice rising. "You call betraying me, humiliating me, entertainment?" Jessie flinched. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she said, voice a whisper. "It was supposed to be extra money. I didn't think it would hurt you." "You didn't think?" I snapped, anger boiling. "You didn't think I'd find out? You didn't think I'd care?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know what to do," she said, voice breaking. "I was scared. I thought if I told you, you'd leave me." I stared at her. "You thought lying was better?" I asked, voice cold. "You thought I wouldn't notice?" She didn't answer, head bowed. Jason shifted. "Look," he said, voice tense. "I get that you're pissed, okay? But this isn't just on her. It's on me too. I should have stopped it." I turned to him. "You're damn right it's on you," I said, voice low, dangerous. "You knew she was married. You knew what you were doing was wrong. But you didn't care, did you? You just wanted what you wanted." He looked away, jaw clenched. I stepped closer. "You're going to pay for this," I said, voice cold. "Both of you, and not just with words. You're going to feel the consequences." Jessie looked up, eyes wide. "What are you going to do?" she asked, voice trembling. I didn't answer. I let the silence stretch. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out the digital recorder. "This," I said, voice calm, "is your confession. Every word, every tear, it's all here, and it's going to be heard by everyone who needs to know." They both froze, faces pale. "You can't do that," Jason said, voice rising. "That's private. That's illegal." I smiled. "You think I care about what's legal?" I asked. "You think I care about your privacy after what you've done?" Jessie started to cry, covering her face. "Please," she begged, voice breaking. "Don't do this. I'll do anything. Just don't ruin my life." I looked at her. "You ruined your own life," I said, voice cold. "And now you're going to live with the consequences." I walked out of the room, the recorder in hand. They called after me, voices pleading, but I didn't look back. I had what I needed. The next step was clear. I sat at the kitchen table, the laptop open. I uploaded the recording, along with the videos and screenshots, to secure cloud storage. Then I started drafting emails to Jesse's family, to Jason's employer, to anyone who needed to know the truth. The sun was starting to rise. I sat there, fingers flying over the keyboard. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about making sure they could never hurt anyone else. And when I was done, the emails sent, I leaned back, a cold smile on my face. They thought they could get away with it. They thought they could betray me and walk away unscathed. But they were wrong. And now they were going to pay. The fallout was swift and merciless. Jesse's family disowned her, messages cold and final. "You're not our daughter anymore," her father had said, voice trembling. Her mother didn't even pick up the phone. Jason's employer fired him immediately, citing a breach of ethics. The videos had spread like wildfire, tarnishing his reputation. He tried to fight back, threatening legal action, but he had no ground. I watched it all from a distance, emotions a tangled mess. The house felt too big, too quiet. I sold it within weeks. The new owners didn't ask questions. I moved into a small apartment on the other side of town, a blank slate. The divorce was swift and brutal. Jessie didn't contest it. She couldn't. The recordings ensured I got everything: the alimony, the assets, the finality. She tried to reach out once, voice trembling on a voicemail. "I'm sorry," she said, words choked with tears. "I never meant to hurt you." I deleted the message without responding. There was nothing left to say. Jason disappeared from the city shortly after losing his job. He moved back in with his parents, his career in ruins. I didn't care where he went, as long as he was gone. But even as I moved on, the weight of what I'd done lingered. The satisfaction of revenge had faded, replaced by a hollow ache. I threw myself into my work, taking extra shifts at the hospital, burying myself in the routine. The hum of the night shift became my constant companion. Yet, in the quiet moments, I couldn't escape the memories. The look on Jesse's face, the sound of Jason's voice, the cold, calculated way I'd destroyed their lives. I told myself it was justice. They deserved it. But it was more than that. It was about control, about proving that I wasn't powerless. And I had. But at what cost? The question haunted me. I'd won, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like survival. The final chapter wasn't marked by fireworks. It was quiet. I moved on. The apartment became my sanctuary. I filled it with new things, new routines, but the scars remained. I threw myself into work, finding solace in the hospital. The night shifts grounded me in the present. I took on extra hours. It was exhausting, but it kept me from thinking, from feeling. Jessie faded into the background. I heard she'd moved to another state. I didn't ask for details. Jason, too, disappeared. His name occasionally surfaced, but he was no longer my concern. The alimony payments came regularly. It felt like a small victory, but it wasn't enough to fill the void. In the end, I realized revenge hadn't brought me peace. It had brought closure, but not as I expected. The anger had burned out, leaving behind emptiness. And in that emptiness, I found clarity. I'd been so focused on punishing them that I'd forgotten myself. But now, with the past behind me, I could look forward. I started therapy, unpacking the pain. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And slowly, piece by piece, I began to heal. The scars remained, but they no longer defined me. I was stronger, wiser, ready to face whatever came next. The journey had been painful, but necessary. And, as I sat in the quiet of my apartment, the hum of the city outside, I knew one thing. I was finally free.